ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bunny's channel. Tonight I'm presenting a beginner's guide to playing the Guardian Gods in the arena mode of Smite. Guardians are the tanks of Smite, and in arena mode it's generally your job to engage and lock up the enemy gods while the rest of your team does the damage. The way in which the Guardians achieve this, secondary roles they have to your team differ quite significantly from the so in alphabetical order, first up is Ares, and it's appropriate first as he is the most common Guardian in basic game. The reason for this is his ulti, which can be brutal in team fights. Given that arena mode is basically constant team fights, he tends to shine in this mode. Ares' ulti will send chains out to latch onto any enemy gods in a big radius around Ares before yanking them to him after a 2.5 second delay. Enemy gods will be bunched up effectively around Ares, allowing the team to AoE damage abilities and huge damage to enemies on the right hand. You'll often see Ares matched with a cool on the side to maximise the benefit gained from Ares ult. A good Ares ult will win a team fight in one first round, but it's not the only reason to take Ares in battle. For a Guardian, Ares can also dish out some pretty serious damage, the main source of which is from his third ability, Searing Flesh, which creates a cone of fire immediately in front of Ares, which deals both flat damage and a health percentage damage to the gods. Ares' first ability, Shackles, will fire a chain in the line out of Ares which will latch onto enemy gods and deal damage every time, slowing them and also preventing the Shackle god from using any movement abilities while shackled. And if the Shackle hits Ares' aim, it will fire a second, and even a third Shackle at the same time. Ares' second ability is bolster defenses, which will increase the functions and reduce the duration of CC of Ares and by outlaws by 8%. The typical play with Ares is to link into the ability ulti, Searing Flesh, and use Shackles and Ares has his weaknesses too, however. Firstly, he has no escape. The only way out of a bad situation is to bolster your defenses and then try to dodge each other. This is particularly noticeable in the early game when you've built very few items. Your early ultis are particularly vulnerable as the enemy team can sometimes just focus you down before they're even yanked towards you, especially if you go in without maximum health. The other main issue with Ares is that your ulti is very easily countered by beads. Your opponents need to time their bead use to coincide with when they would be yanked towards Ares, but it's not hard to learn, and if you're comboing with Kukulkan or another god's ulti, sometimes you'll end up blowing one or more ultis on the assumption that the gods will be attacking Ares, only to find that they all use beads and escape, and ulti to miss the very moment. Building items for Ares in arena mode is important to know his passive, which is one of the best two guardians. For every aura item Ares completes, he gains an extra 30 magic damage, moving more to his already decent damage. But aura items aren't your main focus. First you want cooldown reduction so that you can use your ulti more frequently. With cooldown reduction, you can ensure that even enemies with rank 3 beads can only escape every second round. After picking up issues and focus on the rest of the colour, start taking also start every game with an upgrade to greater than to ensure don't get combat link, as its cooldown is too long, you should be initiating fights with a link on this game. As for skills, I level Searing Flesh and bolster defenses first. Without any escapes, leveling bolster defenses early is pretty essential, especially if your team has a bad start. Unlike Ares, Athena is much more. Her first ability is Preemptive Strike, which allows her to dash a short distance, slowing and damaging the first enemy she hits. After using an ability, her next attack is ranged and does additional damage, which also helps her when chasing down. The second ability is a short range AoE taunt, which can be used to initiate fights or combo with the Preemptive Strike to reach the line Saving teammates is Athena's flying focus. Her ultimate allows her to choose a teammate anywhere on the map. After 4.2 second channel time, she leaps through the air to that teammate, doing a big chunk of damage to any enemy in the same. During the channel time, your chosen ally also has 20% damage. While her ultimate can be used to save allies trying to lead fights, due to that 4.2 second channeling time, even with the 20% damage reduction, quite often that ally will simply be dead before you finish channeling. If this happens, Athena simply leaps into the sky before immediately landing right back where she started, wasting your ult. It's better to use Athena's ult on an ally as they go into battle, so that you land in the middle of the enemy where you'll usually start off with your third ability, Shield Wall, which has a 2-stage AoE nuke centered on Athena, and then you follow up with a taunt to keep enemies inside that nuke, and then you can use preemptive strike to chase or slow down the enemies. Athena's main weakness are her 4.2 second time ulti, her cooldowns, which compared to other Guardians are a bit on the long side, and her damage, which doesn't scale. Because of the long cooldowns and low damage, I stick with what is a very common starting tank build for me, that is Shoes of Focus and a Breastplate of Valor for maximum cooldown, followed by Mystical Mail and a Void Stone, which when combined help us stay relevant in team fights, even after and finally Serenity for the aura and the added defenses and staff to help. For skills, I max preemptive strike first because it's the most reliable source of damage you have, and it lowers the cooldown, which means chase. Bacchus looks like a joke in Arena, but he can be one of the most frustrating gods to play against as he is an incredibly disruptive Guardian. Unfortunately, he can also be an incredibly frustrating god to play, and that's due to his passive. Bacchus' first ability is Chug, which when used will give him protection for 6 seconds and also raise his drunken meter. As Bacchus continues to chug and his drunken meter continues to rise, Bacchus first becomes tipsy, gaining damage reduction and then smashed, which doubles the damage bonuses. However, you don't want to be smashed at all times because Bacchus' other abilities can be big benefits when he is tipsy. The problem is, while it's easy to raise Bacchus' drunken meter, it drains very slowly, which will make it hard to get back on the tipsy meter. It also means that you can't use chug to gain protections without getting the second ability, for example, Belly Flop, allows Bacchus to lead a short distance, dealing damage to and not the enemy gods up to the end. And if he is tipsy, enemies are also slowed after they land, which is great for helping your team chase down fleeing enemy gods or saving an ally from a chasing pursuer. Bacchus' third ability, Belch of the Gods, will damage enemies in a cone directly in front of him and stun enemies at the end of the duration if he is tipsy. Bacchus' ulti is yet another CC where he smashes his jug of wine on the ground, dealing damage and causing all enemies, gods in the area around him to become intoxicated for a whopping 8 seconds, during which time their vision swims and they can't walk in a straight line. It's hilarious. If you Bacchus, it's super annoying to kill the enemy. Bacchus also gains a big magical power buff if he is smashed, when he can start doing some good damage to the enemy, but even then I don't think it's worth giving up the benefits to Belly Flop and Belch of the God that tipsy state brings. As for the negatives, apart from managing your drunken meter so that you stay tipsy most of the time, Bacchus also relies on being able to hit the Belly Flop ability, which, due to the flight time, I find surprisingly difficult to land unless the enemy gods are this way. I use a very standard Guardian build for Bacchus, which is cooldown reduction, auras and defensive items, very similar to the For skills, I max Chug last because the amount it increases the drug meter rises with the skill, and I find it makes it more difficult to use Chug without jumping into the smash state. Cabrakan is another disruptive Guardian. His signature move is his third ability, Tremors, which, like Hades' ultimate, deals damage to surrounding enemies and drags them into the center of the Cabrakan channels. Given that he can channel the ability up to 10 seconds and it only has an 8-second cooldown, Cabrakan spends a lot of enemies to react Tremors, or at least he does against the Tremors, so he realize that any sort of hard CC, any bandit, Unfortunately, Cabrakan's other abilities Cabrakan's passive reduces damage to nearby allied enemies to 25%. His first ability gives him speed up, causes his I use it, it never seems to create the wall quite where I'm expecting. Cabrakan is also very susceptible to CC, so I buy Reinforced Greaves first instead of Shoes of Focus as my first item, and then a Hide of the Urchin for early magic protection, because Cabrakan is very easy to hit the spells while he is channeling Tremors. Then Breastplate of Valor for cooldowns and some semi-DPS items in the Voidstone, Dynasty Helm, and Imperial Star, because Cabrakan actually has some decent damage to the skills, Max Reflective Shield first for the extra protections, and then Tremors to up the Geb, however, is not a damage dealer. He's a damage mitigator. Every single one of his skills can be used to save either himself or a teammate. This makes him a great choice when paired with Assassins, or when pitted against an enemy team that will pick off single roles. He also brings a lot of CC to the team, and he's one of the best teamfight initiators. Geb's passive simply reduces by 75% the bonus damage he takes from hits. His first skill, Roll Out, turns Geb into a boulder that will slowly gain speed over time, becoming CC immune after 3 seconds, dealing damage to him. This skill is one of the fastest ground covering abilities in the game. Even if you're way back at base and the enemy are trying to chase down and kill one of your teammates, Roll Out will get you within shield range of your teammate very quickly, and it will also allow you to retreat from fights very quickly. Roll Out can also be used defensively. I usually walk past the jungle camps to try and get behind the enemy team so I can hopefully knock out some enemy going forward into my team. This will only work a couple of times before your opponents start watching where you are at all times, but even then, you force the enemy team back every single time. Geb's second ability, Shockwave, is a cone AoE knock-up skill. Roll into a fight for knocking up the enemies or shoot your teammate for saving teammate's life, or be the start of the game. His third ability, Stone Shield, removes CC from the fighting being throw this on assassins as they dive in for a kill, or saboteurs on a teammate who gets to the Stone Shield is great against enemy guys who hit and die thinking they're going to pick up an easy kill, only for you to shield their target, then you can use Shockwave to knock them up, allowing your own team an easy kill. Stone Shield has quite a long cooldown, so don't spam it, or it'll be on cooldown when you really need it to save an ally. Geb's ulti is an AoE centered on himself that stuns and damages enemies. It's a great teamfight initiator because it does damage equal to a percentage of the enemy's current health, meaning it does more damage at the start of a teamfight when your enemy guards are healthy, rather than when you're using it to mop up. The stun maxes out at 1.8 seconds, but can be followed up by a shockwave to give your teammates time to get in easy damage at the start of the teamfight. I build Geb at full cooldown reduction tank. You want to be able to use your abilities to save teammates or set your team up for kills, and the tankier you are, the less often you have to use those abilities to save yourself. For skills, I max Stone Shield first, then Shockwave, as you only really need 1 point in roll. Hades fills a similar role to Ares. Most notably, both gods have ultis that drag enemies into a central point, and both back up their team ulti with some decent damage. Hades is the only Guardian to have ranged attack, and this is important because his auto attack replaces passive skill, Light. Light doesn't do anything on its own, but all of Hades' active abilities add additional effects to enemies that are suffering from Light debuff. The first of these active abilities is Death from Below, which allows Hades to teleport a short distance, dealing damage and adding light to enemies in a small AoE around his destination. If enemies are already blighted, then they're also slowed by this ability. Hades' second ability is Shroud of Darkness, which silences enemies for up to 2 seconds and applies light in a short cone in front of you. If enemies are already blighted, they are feared instead of silenced. His third ability, Devour Souls, is a small AoE attack centered on Hades, which deals damage to all enemies in the area. Devour Souls also consumes light on enemies here, causing additional explosions to originate from the light enemy that deal additional damage to the enemies and also heal Hades and nearby allies. This ability is best used on big groups of enemies. If an enemy guard gets close to a group of his own minions, you can use Death from Below to teleport amongst them and apply light to the group, or using Devour Souls to cause a huge amount of damage to small. Unfortunately, enemies who know how Hades works, they won't be foolish enough to stand next to a lot of their own minions. However, you can still use this combo to wave clear and also healing yourself at the same time. Hades' ulti is a channeled ability that slowly damages and drags all enemies in an area around him towards the center. Enemies can escape by jumping out with abilities or by very slowly walking out, so it's not as reliable as Ares' ult, but Hades doesn't require a blink to initiate, as he can initiate with death from below instead. Enemies that are blighted also have their protections reduced while in a Hades ult, and his ult can be combined with something like Poseidon's Whirlpool or Kraken for devastation. Hades has among the highest magical damage power ratios of any Guardian, so I build him as a much more offensive Guardian than most. I start with my typical cooldown reduction items, before adding a Void Stone and Mythical Mail, which add good damage to Hades with all of his short range. They also give you additional protections. Then an Ethereal Staff, which is great on Guardians, you want to give a little more magical power to. And the last item on my build is a Polynomicon Orbo. You don't often get to this point in the game where you can have a full build. While Hades is probably the second highest damage dealer of Guardians, Kumbhakana is probably the second highest. The pentakilling potential here before you do bring to your team is a lot of disruption. Kumbhakana's playstyle is quite a bit different to the other Guardians, where most Guardians want to be in the middle of the team fight and absorb as much attention as possible. Kumbhakana wants to be in the enemy backline, zoning out 2 or more enemy damage dealers while the rest of your team fights with numbers advantage elsewhere. Kumbhakana's passive is Sleepy. If you are reduced to 0 health, you don't immediately die. Instead, fall asleep and will wake up after 8 seconds unless the enemy commit enough auto attacks to finish you off. This is quite useful in a team fight because it means you can stay in a close team fight even if you fall asleep, your opponents won't have time to finish you off. Be aware that Sleepy does have a 240-second cooldown, so you can't rely on it too much. Kumbhakana's first active ability is the Throwback. He will charge forward until he hits a minion or god, dealing damage to gods or hurling a strong minion forward across several distance. A hurled minion will also damage any enemy that passes through. This actually provides a pretty good long range or way of being Rocket Strike is Kumbhakana's second ability. It's one you can he'll charge up an overhead strike that will damage and remove enemies. Note that you can be interrupted during the wind-up of this attack. Mighty Yawn is his third ability, and it will mesmerize enemies in an area around Kumbhakana, and is the main reason why he plays best in the enemy back ranks. If you use this in the middle of a team fight, all that will happen will be your allies will break the mesmerize with their own damage, so use it in their back line so that they fall asleep and they're asleep for the whole duration. Mighty Yawn can also be used while you are sleepy to protect yourself from melee attackers. Epic Uppercut is Kumbhakana's ulti, and it has a very short 60-second cooldown. Epic Uppercut will punch an enemy god into the air for 2.2 seconds before they crash back down to earth, damaging all enemies with it. This is the only real addition that Kumbhakana brings to a team fight, and most of the time you want to be using your abilities to root, mesmerize, and knock up hunters or mages in the enemy's backline, while the rest of your team fights elsewhere. Build cooldown and tank items to help you survive their damage, and just basically make a nuisance of yourself. For skills, max Throwback first, as it gives you some early game poke damage, then max Mighty Yawn at the start of the enemy backline. While Kumbhakana is a menace to the enemy backline, Sobek is a menace to the enemy backline. First things first though, Sobek's passive is Pathetic. It gives a maximum plus 15 protections if you're constantly hitting things. Ignore it. Sobek's first active ability, Charge Prey, more than makes up for it. What it does is allow Sobek to charge forward, damaging the first enemy he hits, and then throwing them over his head behind him. Unless you so look away now because what happens to Ra in the following footage is not being And it's not just Ra that makes for a great target for Sobek. Any enemy god without escape or squishy enough for your team to finish off quickly makes for a great target, especially if your team has some offset seeking. After being thrown into your team, enemies will run or jump out as quickly as possible, which is where your second ability, Tail Whip, comes in. Tail Whip damages and knocks back enemies in the radius around Sobek, so when the enemy god tries to escape back past you, you just knock them back into your own. Seriously, unless you're a Guardian, you don't want to be Try to stay out of his charge range, or if you have to come forward to pull away from him, try to keep family minions between yourself and Sobek. Charge Prey can also be used to catch and hurl away enemy guards that are chasing a fleeing teammate. Be aware though that when Charge Prey is used well, it can be a death sentence for an enemy guard. However, it can also be used poorly, and you can instead find yourself hurling enemy gods into the range of low health allies, or helping enemy gods to escape being killed by your allies by hurling them to safety, so use it sensibly. Sobek's third ability is Sickening Strike. It damages enemies in a cone in front of Sobek, and reduces the healing hit targets received by 50% for 6 seconds. Sobek also heals for each enemy hit, which is a principal threat. And most games you'll just use this for the extra damage or to heal yourself. But in a game where the enemy have a strong healing health, the healing debuff is actually really useful. Finally, Sobek's ulti is working waters. When activated, Sobek will dive underwater, becoming immune to CC, regenerating mana, and slowing nearby enemies. Note that even though he appears to be protected underwater, he can still be hit by auto attacks. And then after 4 seconds of submersion, less if you can still early, Sobek will erupt from underwater, damaging all enemies in a large radius. Emerging early reduces the ability. Build Sobek with cooldown reduction and tank items. After charging an enemy, you'll usually stay out in front to discourage the teammate. Also, because you are with your team most of the time, all items go to Serenity is great, and Pestilence adds to your anti-heal. For skills, Max Tail Whip and Sickening Strike first for the added damage. Only 1 point is needed. Sobek's my favourite Guardian. Sylvanas, however, is my least favourite. While some Guardians are better than others in Arena, every Guardian god is useful in some form, except Sylvanas. Sylvanas has the worst damage of all Guardians and some of the longest ability. His claim to fame is his first active ability, which is vertical. When used, it will create a power that after 10 seconds starts providing nearby enemies with life, which would be great for sustain in a lane in Conquest mode, but in Arena, on a much smaller and faster paced map, where there are always 5 enemy gods we have to kill these players, this seriously. Sylvanas' passive roots an enemy attacking him with auto attacks once every 12 seconds, so his second active is AoE damage over time and heal over time, but it's so weak that in the fast-paced Arena mode it's barely noticeable. His third ability is Nature's Grasp, which is sort of like a weaker version of Sobek's Charge Prey, except the longer cooldown and shorter range just make you wish you'd chosen Sobek instead. Sylvanas' ulti is actually quite good, adding the only real damage he can do and knock up to a large radius around him, much like Sobek or Geb's ulti. Unfortunately, where Geb can roll into the enemy team as a boulder or Sobek can charge to engage, Sylvanas has to use a blink to engage. I won't give you build strategies for Sylvanas because I simply can't find a way around. That isn't to say a good player can't do well with Sylvanas in Arena. What I'm saying is that they can do well regardless of context. If you think I'm missing something about Sylvanas, please add your thoughts on him in the comments. As for our last Guardian, we transition from the weakest Arena champion in Guardian in Sylvanas to the strongest. And the reason he's the strongest is his flexibility. All the Guardians I've already mentioned can be really strong, and they can also be shut down sometimes even before the game starts by the enemy god selection. For example, my favourite Guardian, Sobek, can have his effectiveness greatly reduced when all the enemy gods have reliable escape tiers after being held to my teammates. For example, Neith can jump out, Aokun can stealth away, and so on and so forth for enemy gods. But no enemy team composition can shut Ymir down. Not only that, there are plenty of gods that Ymir himself can shut down. Why is he so good? Let's take a look. Firstly, Ymir has the most reliable stun of any Guardian. Frost Breath deals damage to and freezes enemies in the cone in front of them. The freeze lasts for up to 2.25 seconds. That is ridiculous. Enemy Aokun or Loki constantly assassinating your backline to save this ability for them. As soon as they appear, freeze them. Secondly, Ymir has the only reliable way of being. His second ability, Glacial Strike, will very quickly ramp up the damage and wipe out most of the enemy. It also slows down his hit and has a near 8 second. Thirdly, Ymir has destruction also. His first ability, Ice Wall, creates all of the music stock teammate that's fleeing, or you can just throw it down in the middle of an enemy team to split them in half so you can deal with one half before the other. Usually used after initiating with a blink or frost breath, Ymir's ulti is a large radius channeled AoE around Ymir. While channeling, he gains protections and slows all the enemies around him. Then after 3 seconds he explodes, dealing massive damage to enemies still in the AoE. Often what you'll do is cancel the AE channel early, just before enemies are about to escape the radius, in which case it deals reduced, but still significant damage. The main thing though is that enemies have to escape. A fully channeled Ymir ult will do 1,100 damage plus 150% of his magical power at maximum range. And your enemies can't ignore it, so they have to waste time getting out of enemy team fight when they should be concentrating on doing whatever it is that makes them valuable to their team. Finally, Ymir does the most damage of any Guardian. His ult is a part of that, but it mostly comes from Glacial Strike, which has a high damage and very low cooldown. When combined with his passive, Ymir is far and away the highest damage dealer. His passive is simply that he does damage, double auto attack damage to any enemies recently hit. My build for Ymir is quite different to other Guardians due to his high magical power ratios and his ability to wave clear. I start with Shoes of Focus for cooldown reduction, then Hide of the Urchin for some early tankiness, before going into Book of Thoth. It's the third item I build, and you build it that early so you can start building the stacks, and so that you have the mana to spam Glacial Strike. Breastplate of Valor will max your cooldown reduction out, add more physical protection, and give you more mana for that. Finally, all your damage abilities are short range, so Void Stone is great value, and Ethereal Staff is the skills makes it Glacial Strike first or later, then Frost Breath and Duration Stone. Finally, some recommends for how to choose one Guardian. I recommend waiting until the most of the teams get their champions and then decide based on those teams. Firstly, if your team lacks wave clear, go Ymir. It's the only Guardian with wave clear, and if he doesn't have competition with other gods, it means he can easily get his stacks off. Secondly, if your team is AoE heavy, consider going Ares or Hades, so you've got the ability to group enemies up for all those AoE damage abilities from the rest of your team. Thirdly, if your team has more assassins, go Geb to give them a bit more survivability when they dive, or Sobek so that you can throw enemies to them. Finally, if your team is focused around hunters, I recommend Ymir again for the extra wave clear to keep minions clear from your hunters' firing lines, and also to provide that reliable stun if an enemy assassin jumps onto one of your hunters. Todd Harris, one of the co-founders of Hi-Rez Studio, announced at PAX Oz this year that Arena Mode has overtaken